On my desk, mocking me, was the invitation to the yearly Sullivan family reunion, lettering embossed in gold. A sophisticated serif font. I was asked to RSVP by the 15th in a polite script. The headline that would shatter the whole illusion I had spent 15 years creating was right below it. Gleaming in the morning light streaming through the rooftop windows, Forbes 30 under 40, the NFT empire of Safia Sullivan is valued at $3.8 billion. In just 48 hours, 2 days prior to the reunion, that piece would go live. I had no control over how it transpired. Months ago, my assistant had secretly submitted the feature. Forbes took it by storm. I felt angry, then strangely at ease, pretending to be the family failure for 15 years. Over. Furthermore, I was unable to stop it. My assistant's voice crackled across the intercom. Miss Sullivan, your brother Marcus has returned to the line. He was, of course. Since the press release reached media inboxes, he had been phoning constantly. I inhaled deeply before picking up the phone. Hi, Marcus. Sophia. What the devil? He let out a bark. No. Hello. Don't warm up. I just received a call from Business Insider asking for a remark. Would you mind telling me that my sister is a multi-billionaire? I reclined in my chair and let the Manhattan skyline take over. Guess you'll have to wait for the article. Like everyone else, stop the nonsense, he yelled. You gave us the impression that you were barely making ends meet for all these years. Your parents were quite concerned about you. I chuckled, couldn't resist, concerned. Do you call those years of condescension, the lectures, the emails claiming to have a real job, or the yearly reminder that I was squandering my Ivy League education at Christmas dinner? They were attempting to assist? No. I snapped back. They sought to exert control, as they attempted to do with you. The distinction is that you let them to quiet. The golden child had always been Marcus, Ivy League MBA, dad's financial company, heir to the family. Like it was gospel. He lived out the screenplay they created for us. In 2009, I destroyed mine and burned it. Quieter now, he said. Just tell me one thing, how much time? For what length of time? For what duration have you been concealing this? I watched a helicopter land on a nearby rooftop as I stood and made my way to the window. My chopper. Out of 3. Do you recall when I relocated to that Brooklyn shoebox studio? When did you start doing that foolishness with digital art? Yes, it was 15 years ago. God, I grinned. That's correct. Everyone believed that I was going crazy, discarding a degree in finance to doodle on a laptop, as Dad put it. I went on to say, what none of you knew was that I had already sold my first NFT collection for $50,000. Back then, another sold for $200. 6 months later, I had reached my first million by the time. Dad told the rest of the family that I was going through a phase. I could hear the calculations running through his mind. His ego was crumbling, and I could feel it. However, you took out a loan to pay your rent. Up until around last year, you were the driver of that terrible panda. I never took anything out. I requested that they make an investment. No, they replied loudly. What about the vehicle? Branding was that. Theater? What about the penthouse? His voice suddenly became tiny as he inquired. Theater, too. This one is authentic. The jet is as well as the island, all mine. Somewhere between a choke and a gasp, there was a sound on the line. His face was practically visible to me. I could practically hear pride scream against a wall. I added, Forbes will say $3.8 billion. That's conservative, though. It's almost 5 now. Then I stopped. Oh, And Marcus, the first, said, already taking a quick look at my watch. At the reunion, I'll see you. I am considering making an entrance. I ended the call. No grandiose farewell, no authorization to talk. I buzzed Sarah on the intercom as soon as I hit the button to end the call. Are everything ready for the reunion? Miss Sullivan? Yes. Fuel is in the jet. All of the family members will be picked up by the Rolls Royces as per your request. The location has been moved to the private island. All on-site employees have NDAs ready. Excellent. I ran my fingers over the gilt letters on the reunion invitation as I lifted it up again. I gave them the impression that I was the one who had failed for 15 years. The daughter that was lost, the sister who is having difficulties, the erratic artist, the one they all thought was better every time they said they would help me out. Not this time, though. It was me who wrote the story this time. Once more, my phone buzzed. Olivia. Naturally, is this Forbes thing true? Soph? Tell me it's a joke, please. What's going on? I didn't respond. Olivia was often bringing up her six-figure salary at family dinners. Not everyone's cut out for the real world. Soph, stated Olivia once, and that's all right. Silence her while she stews. Once more, the intercom buzzed. Miss Sullivan, both of your parents are at risk. Inform them that I have a meeting. I just no longer owed them my time. I nodded and looked at my watch. Call the helipad. Sarah. Today, I'll be driving the helicopter to the board meeting. My thoughts were already drifting back 15 years to the night that everything changed, even as I snatched up my coat and bag, the night I chose to become invisible. They didn't want to watch the night I began constructing the empire. Playing the failure has the drawback that people want to believe it. It simplifies their lives. Cleaner, more rational. They don't need to rethink their course of action if I'm the one who tossed everything away, or the aspects of themselves that they kept quiet about in order to maintain their good standing with the family. One dinner was the beginning. I was 22, straight from Wharton, sitting at the same crystal glasses, the same stifling anticipation, and the same old mahogany table in my parents' house. I had just sold pixelated art on the blockchain for $50 so. I was trembling with anticipation. I desired to inform them. I had to inform them. However, I never had the opportunity. My father sliced his steak and declared, digital art isn't real art. And this NFT bullshit, a trend, a fraud. Dad, it's not a fraud. I recently sold a piece to a Tokyo collector. All right? He yelled, either you're coming to work for the company or you're working alone. No further assistance. No more safety net. Like I was 5, my mother patted my hand. We only want the finest, sweetie. You require stability, a legitimate career. Marcus on the other side of the table didn't even raise his head. Olivia, ta. She grinned, as if she were witnessing me finally receive what I was due. I can still feel the heat rising in my chest as I simultaneously felt grief, embarrassment, and wrath. I didn't fight back, though. Then no, I pushed my chair back and muttered, you're right. I have to work this out myself. I meant it to. I moved into a one-room apartment in a dilapidated Brooklyn walk-up 2 weeks later. No furnishings. No air conditioning. Only a used laptop that overheated if I had more than 3 tabs open and a mattress on the floor. It wasn't glitzy. It was mine, though. I was creating something that my family couldn't see because they didn't want to, while they were chatting among themselves about my quarter-life crisis. At 5 a.m, I woke up daily, pained until my hands started to cramp, until my eyes were blurry. I learned to code, studied digital ownership, copyright law, and blockchain. I signed up for hidden Discord servers, traded artwork behind closed doors on the internet, had an almost insane sense of conviction, and survived on Red Bull and ramen. I made $200.0 when I sold my second NFT series. I kept it a secret. In order to avoid drawing attention to my business, I registered it under a different name, formed a group, created a brand, hired attorneys, marketing and developers. My net worth reached $10 million the first year. I was still wearing jeans from the thrift store to family gatherings. Money envelopes were hidden beneath the table by my mother. Just to help with groceries, my father would not use my name in public, as if I weren't sitting there. He would say, "Your sister needs to grow up." And I gave them permission. Since I was aware of something they were not, when you believe someone needs you, it's simple to ignore them. When they don't, it's far more difficult. I didn't require their blessing. I required room, and I had more freedom than I could have ever dreamed thanks to the falsehood they spread about me. However, it wasn't always simple. On certain nights, I wondered whether I was being petty as I gazed at the ceiling. If I ought to have chosen the safe route, apologized, pretended to require them once more. But each time I would recall how dad had brushed me off, like I was playing dress up as a kid, Olivia's tone. Some people just aren't built for the real world. Saf also comes to mind. Those recollections became into fuel. I had real estate holdings in 5 different cities by the 3rd year. At the same time, my artwork had been shown in the metaverse, the Louvre, and Art Basel. I was still the poor sister who followed her heart at every family gathering. With a wine glass in hand, Aunt Patricia would inquire, "Are you still doing that digital thing?" I would savor my water, smile, and nod. The value of that digital item exceeded the whole value of all the companies in the Sullivan portfolio. I continue to wear the mask, though, because you don't start by shouting fire if you're planning to burn the house down. You wait until everyone is inside and the doors are locked. I just made one slip. It was 3 years ago. I presented my father's company with an investment proposal. It was brilliant blockchain backed, completely scalable, secure, digital identification for expensive art. My team had test results by prototypes and a 10-year prognosis that would have made any Wall Street analyst cry. In my face, he chuckled. He shook his head and added, "You want us to fund internet stickers. You're not ready for the real market." Sophia, his partner, Albert Chen, was blunter. "We don't deal in illusions." I smiled politely as I walked off the pitch. Then I went home, made the darn platform anyhow, and raised the money myself. It was valued at $900 million last year. Yesterday, Albert sent me an email. "Your father may have undervalued your potential. We should talk about the synergies between your business and Sullivan Investments." No response. I was not constructing bridges. I was getting the Fallout landing strip ready. The first domino had already been cracked by the press release, and the Forbes story was only hours away from going live. I was standing in my penthouse, not the studio apartment I kept for show, but my actual penthouse. On the far wall was a Basquiat picture that was more expensive than my parents' house. Every morning, the breathtaking vista of Central Park from the floor to ceiling windows left me speechless. I could no longer ignore the life they told me was impossible. And in 2 days, I would enter that reunion as the shepherd rather than the black sheep, directing the wolves directly into my area. Once more, the intercom buzzed. "Your mother is in the lobby, Miss Sullivan, and she is requesting to see you." On my way to the security panel, I observed her on the screen, Sullivan, Alina. She wore an expensive suit, had perfect posture, and had the same tense grimace whenever I said something that annoyed her. However, she had a new, frenzied look in her eyes today. I let out a sigh, give her a chance. With a gentle chime, the elevator opened. She entered the room as though she owned it, like she always did. But everything stopped when her heels struck the marble. She glanced toward the penthouse. The windows from floor to ceiling, Basquiat. She once asserted that I would never possess the understated elegance of everything. Her voice was weak as she turned to face me. What is all of this? Sophia, like she used to do for me as a young child, sobbing over bullying in the schoolyard. I poured her coffee, the same hands, the same actions, distinct vigor. Mom, this is my house, but I don't get it. The small apartment, the old car, the rent money. I sat across from her and gave her the cup. You mean that apartment you all felt sorry for me? The one you referred to as brave for residing in? While Olivia boasted about her Hamptons condo, she looked at the cup as if she was unsure of what to do with it. Blinking, I added, I asked you and Dad to invest in my business, but you said no. You wanted a handout. That was different. No. I answered quietly but firmly. I wanted belief. I wanted partnership. Quiet. Next, you misled us. No, I said, becoming even more silent. I allowed you to believe what you already desired to believe. She sat down slowly, as if the elevator ride had aged her bones by 10 years. 15 years, she said, and we didn't realize. I got up, walked over to my desk, and took out the folder I had been holding onto for so long. I showed Dad this investment deck 3 years ago. His equity would be worth just over $100 million today if he had invested the $1 million I requested. At first, she didn't accept it, gazed at it as if it were radioactive. Her hands were shaking when she eventually reached for the folder. As she silently leafed through it, she saw graphs, valuations, launch dates, market estimates, and everything else written off as fantasies and fads. She whispered, your pride wouldn't let you admit your art wasn't working, and your father said you weren't ready. I looked her in the eyes, and you trusted him. She parted her lips, then shut them. None of them had attended a show in 15 years. Looked up my name online or inquired about what I had constructed. You would assume that curiosity alone would have sufficed. However, no, it was easier to lie. Returning to the window, I gazed down at the city. I remarked, this reunion is going to be a little different. With a raised eyebrow, she said, different how? I purchased the island on which it is being held. Once more, she blinked. You what? After we closed the $1 billion deal with Apollo Ventures, I purchased it last year and renamed it Sullivan Island. Private air transport is the only option, and the resort has been reserved, staff has been briefed, and NDAs have been signed. You're relocating the whole family gathering. I spun around and gave her a direct look. Mom, this time you won't interrupt me, change the topic, or give me another flyer about a job opportunity at the company. I'm going to talk this time, and you'll listen. In the chair, she appeared diminutive. That was novel. She had always struck me as strong, polished, and unshakable. She was now reclining on a couch I designed in my house, sipping coffee I had paid for, and gazing at a life she didn't comprehend because she never wanted to. Her voice broke. When your father sees all of this, what will he say? I gave a small smile. He should choke on it, I hope. Abruptly, she stood, holding the folder tightly. I require time. 15 years have passed. The tiny girl who sought approval, the quiet voice that used to ask, "Was this good enough, Mom?" She gave me one more look, as if she was looking for something she failed to locate her since she had left. The lady who created an empire while they were away took her place. Then she entered the elevator. Before the doors closed, I added, "Tell Dad to bring his best suit." I put him directly in front of the stage on the seating chart. There was a gentle hiss when the doors closed. I went back in the direction of the window. That morning, the sky was extraordinarily clear, nearly a movie. The type of sky that appears just before a storm. It buzzed on my phone. Olivia once more, "What the fuck is going on?" Saf, "Are you really that wealthy now?" I didn't respond. Allow her to perspire. Allow them to perspire. I gave Sarah a call. "Are the displays prepared?" "Yes, Miss Sullivan." The documentation packets also contain the valuations today and the timelines of their dismissed investments. Well done. Do you want the helipad refinished before the jets land? That's one more thing, she said. Yes. I replied, I want my name to be seen from the air. There should be no confusion. And each room's framed Forbes articles. When they open their doors, make them the first thing they see. I sat at my sketch pad and lit a candle that evening. It had been weeks since I had drawn. I had forgotten how it all began since I had been so preoccupied with creating, proving, scaling, etc. One idea, one sketch, and a woman stating, "That's not real. That'll never work," against a wall of noise. However, I managed to make it work, and my family would experience a world they never thought I could make in just 2 days. Dollar by dollar, picture by painting, room by room, at last, they would see me. Regardless of their feelings about it, the reunion morning was golden and gentle, the morning that acts as though nothing is going to change. As I stood on my private airfield's tarmac, watching the Rolls Royces arrive one after the other, like black chess pieces slipping into position, the wind pulled at my clothing. They arrived silently. My father came first. Still wearing his fitted armor, his jaw clenched, his eyes searching everything, immediately making calculations. Next was my mother, who moved a bit more slowly than normal and gripped her handbag as if it contained answers. Then Marcus, Olivia, aunts, uncles, cousins, and everyone else wore their fancy outfits and exuded confidence as if they were entering a familiar and secure occasion where everyone was already familiar with them. Then they raised their eyes. My name was painted in writing so clean it might shatter glass over the fuselage of my sleek, rebellious jet as it waited for them, Sulai, not Sullivan, mine. Even in my voice, I stated, "Welcome. I hope the ride was comfortable." First to move forward, my father tightened his coat. With a clipped tone, he said, "Sophia, this isn't necessary. We could have had a great reunion at the resort." I grinned. "This is a family matter." I wanted privacy. The resort was too public. Olivia glanced at me after glancing up at the aircraft. "You own a jet?" Without responding, I turned to the steps. I'll let the stillness speak for itself. The jet's interior was deliberate. Gold trim, original artwork, the Sulai crest embroidered on each seat, vintage champagne poured by white-gloved workers, and screens that shine with revolving slides of my best-selling NFT collections, including sale pricing. The first 5 minutes were silent. They simply looked. Aunt Patricia was leaning on one of the paintings. "Is that a genuine Picasso?" "Yes," I replied. I brought 4 on board. Marcus moved around in his chair. Dad's hands were too tight on his glass. Mom didn't respond when Olivia whispered anything to her. I crossed my legs, took a seat across from them, and sipped my champagne. This is only the beginning, I muttered. The descent started 2 hours later. My island, with its 300 acres of private shoreline, emerald rainforest, sparkling water, and in the middle, the resort I had created from the ground up, was visible through the large oval windows. My name was painted in enormous white letters on the helipad exactly as I had requested. Island of Sule, observable from above, everlasting, unavoidable. Olivia let out a non-dramatic gasp as we touched down, the kind that occurs when your body recognizes something your ego hasn't quite caught on to. My digital collections, animations, installation fees, auction results, and a courteous slap across the face were all shown on the screens that surrounded the helipad. Greetings from my world. My employees treated us like kings and queens. Welcome home. Miss Safia, without any last names, my dad's mouth opened, then shut. He was no longer sure where he belonged. I declared, everyone has their own suite, and welcome packages are waiting for you. They silently followed me. Even their shoes made an unsure sound against the imported stone floors as they entered the resort, which was so purposeful, so silent, and so distinctly my nobody spoke. Every room had a framed copy of the Forbes article on the walls. And one of my original pieces, the one Dad used to refer to as a messy JPEG, was the highlight in the lobby. It was worth $12 million at auction and was now sitting in bulletproof glass. I waited an hour, enough time to read the material I had prepared. Every welcome package revealed something new. 4. My dad, a portfolio with the most recent valuations for each proposal he turned down. For Olivia, a spreadsheet that contrasts the interest I earned on Tuesday with her six-figure income. For Marcus, a report detailing the $14 million in unrealized gains his firm lost as a result of his firm's refusal to work with mine. For the others, tailored reminders of the emails they failed to reply to, the performances they never saw, and the opportunities they passed up. It wasn't mean at all. Just the facts, warm paper with cold numbers, proof of a stillness they cultivated. At 7 o'clock, dinner was served with its long table, crystal lights, glass walls, and sky. The dining hall resembled something from a James Bond movie. In the distance, waves smashed. Every chair waited patiently for someone who used to believe that I needed their permission to dream. Every place, setting had been laid with care, and every wine had been poured with care. Dressed up yet unprepared, they filed in. Not at all. I waited for everyone to take a seat, stood at the head of the table. After that, I said, "Thank you for coming." They all stared at me, expectant, anxious, intrigued, and perhaps a bit scared. Dad cleared his throat. "I believe I speak for everyone when I say that we're surprised. Sophia," I chuckled quietly. Not for laughs, but just because I recognized it. I said again, surprised, not hurt, not angry, just surprised. My mom raised her head. "We were unaware," she said. I said, "No, you didn't want to know." I left that hanging. My next words had been waiting for air for 15 years. Every time I succeeded. "You assumed it was luck, temporary or not real. Every time I offered an opportunity, you dismissed it. And every time I tried to discuss my work, you changed the topic." I looked across at Olivia. "Did you feel good about playing the giving sister?" While I nodded and said thank you for all those dinners you insisted on paying for. She squeezed her lips together firmly. "I didn't intend to," I responded. "But you did. You all did." I raised the tiny remote control. I was holding like curtains. Screens fell from the ceiling, and the timeline was there. 2008, the first collection. Digital art isn't real art, sells for $50.0, so 2010, the company's valuation reaches $10 million. You need a real job. 2015, net worth $500 million. At least I can help my sister. 2020, we don't fund internet pictures, $1.2 billion in firm worth. Sophia Sullivan, $3.8 billion empire in 2024 and growing. No one said anything. They did nothing except observe the truth presented clearly, chronologically, and without question. I moved away from the display. I stated, money has never been the issue here. I glanced first at my dad, then at each of them individually. What happens when you reject someone because they don't fit the mold you created out of your own fear? That's what it's all about. Outside, the wind increased. It seemed to be listening. I said, I never needed your permission to build. But in order to stop hiding, I needed to stop needing your approval. Now, though, I didn't. What the wind recalls at first. They remained silent. They just sat there spooning food they couldn't taste. Mute and in shock. The ocean framed the windows like a painting. The wine was matured, and the roast was excellent. Now, however, none of it mattered, as they weren't merely observing me. Everything they had missed was now visible to them. Marcus was the first to break. As if the grain in the wood may give him courage, he cleared his throat and glanced down at the table. Now, what happens? I grinned. Not in a mean or arrogant way, but contented. Now, we eat. I responded. He raised his head, perplexed. I said again, we eat as a family, but this time we don't pretend. No one talks over me. No one gives me advice I didn't ask for, and no one feels sorry for me. I held up my glass. To the truth, they trailed behind, hesitant, delicate, and a touch unsteady. But their glasses went up. We also sat in the same room and actually saw each other for the first time in 15 years. The remainder of the night flowed like mellow music. Nobody argued. Nobody boasted. Small and awkward questions were asked. Are you still doing hand drawings? Did you actually live without air conditioning in that studio? How does building something like this feel? And I replied, simply, gently, no revenge, no gloating. Since I wasn't there to discipline them, I was there for my own liberation. When they all went back to their suites later that evening, I remained by myself in the dining hall. Now the sea was still and dark. I removed my shoes and stepped out onto the terrace. Feeling the warmth of the stone beneath my bare feet, Sarah, my assistant, materialized like a whisper at my side. All right, she inquired. I took a while to respond, simply took a breath. When you live your life suppressing it, you forget to take that breath. Next, it was worthwhile. She gave a nod. The big reveal? No, the letting go, I replied. I discovered something hidden beneath the door of my suite, a message, familiar handwriting on thick card material, my dad's. I was mistaken. It's not just about business, almost anything. You weren't merely successful, you changed the definition of success. I apologize for not seeing it sooner. Father, I've read it once, twice. I then put it in the frame that I had next to my desk, the one that included my first NFT receipt, which was for $50.0. So the beginning of it all, I stopped requesting permission. At that point, the island awoke slowly the following morning. From the balcony, I observed my family exploring the grounds, looking at my work in galleries, reading the timelines I had printed, and stopping at pieces they used to make fun of. There was no longer any loudness. They made respectful movements as if they were entering a temple constructed out of what they used to call rubbish. I was discovered by Olivia beside the koi pond. She mumbled, I didn't know. I really didn't know. And her voice cracked as she gave me the longest hug she had ever given. I understand. I replied, but you do now. And it was sufficient. Later, as the plane got ready to return, I stood at the cliffside helipad. They got on board slowly, somehow lighter, less sure, but more conscious. I didn't adhere to them, didn't give a wave, didn't provide an explanation. They now had everything they required, not from what I provided, but from what I would no longer conceal. I walked alone to the sea's edge once the dust had cleared and the island was once again peaceful. The waves did not applaud me, the sky did not cheer. However, I sensed that change within. Nobody else can provide you with such silent triumph because being seen isn't the source of it. It results from not having to be. A certain type of strength doesn't shout, it doesn't demand apologies or force doors to open. It simply is, like roots spreading through concrete, like wind through canyon stone. They believed me to be a failure, yet I was never that, and I never had to disprove them. All I had to do was be honest with myself. I'm free now.